Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Dreadful Night podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte, and tonight we'll be discussing two of America's most well known cryptids, the Jersey Devil and the Mothman. I'm also joined by my co host, Sugary, and our very special guest, Kim, also known as Miss Ladedah. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good. Hello.
Hello, hello. So, what do you guys think before we get into the Jersey Devil here, running first up to the plate? What do you guys think?
I've never given any serious thought to it. Like, I never thought it was anything that could have remotely ever been true. Not the Jersey Devil. I don't know why. It just seems so far fetched and so out of any normal realm that I just thought it was some hallucination or delirium dream or something.
Kim, what's your thought?
When it comes to the Jersey Devil, you know, all growing up and everything, I always pictured this humongous beast-like creature that just flew from building to building and was just this, total um destructive creature that wreaked havoc everywhere. But then I started to do more research on it and uh, read the incredible background of his story and how he came to be. Um, and it suddenly made him almost human like in a way. And then the article that I was reading took on a political sense, and it traced him back years and years of political turmoil and how he was wrapped up in it. The story of him, I should say, um, got wrapped up in it, and it was for political gain, um, and then it took on an even more interesting character to me. And I no longer pictured him as that humongous beast flying from building to building. He suddenly became smaller to me in my eyes.
Nice, nice. So let's get in here and give the viewers here a little bit of backstory on the Jersey Devil, or the supposed telling of the origins of the Jersey Devil. Now, when it comes to kind of the Jersey Devil's origin story, Deborah Leeds, or at least that's thought to have been her name, also known as Mother Leeds, supposedly is going to give birth to her 13th child, right? So she already has 12 others. And on giving birth to her 13th child, she curses, she swears up and down. She's like, this child is going to be the devil. Like, this baby, this is it. This is when it's going to happen. This child's going to be evil, awful, the devil incarnate. Now, this happens around 1735. And pretty much since 1735, there's been on and off sightings, reports of the Jersey Devil causing havoc. You know, everything from killing livestock, going after people's chickens, just creating a whole bunch of chaos, basically, down and out around the town. But in January 1909, there was an entire week inside January 1909 where basically every single day of that week the Jersey Devil was sighted. It was everything from tearing up chickens, like it had previously, livestock, that kind of thing, to even going to the lengths of attacking a trolley car with people on it, and it actually caused a couple of the people along the rail lines to post armed guards. What do you guys think on that? With this kind of supposed origin story to it, do you think this creature that supposedly is with a hooven, it has a tail, it has wings, it's got this uh, dog's head. What do you guys think? Like, this could be even born by a person, let alone get in and start doing stuff for what, 200, 300 years now?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when I read, the supposed child that Mother Leeds gave birth to. It had a horse-like head, hooves or claws for feet, and leathery bat-like wings. Um, yeah, I just find that so hard to believe
I don't know.
that a
Imagine that
lizard.
coming out of you.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I just find
What
it
is
so hard to
this?
believe
I
that.
don't have any kids, but I can't imagine and that coming out of anyone. Like, no.
Oh, those hooves must have hurt. I'm just saying. Those.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't really buy that part of it at all. I really don't buy that story.
So, what do you guys? I mean, essentially, what this sounds like is that this creature is just basically a pest to anybody that comes across. It's been cited throughout um, all of New Jersey. You know, from different time frames throughout since early 1700s. What do you guys think that that could be the actual cause of the Jersey Devil? Like, what do you think could be? I mean, is it this big creature flying around, you know, flapping around its wings in the woods, and
Well, the so we're just specifically talking about the origin, like
what do you think? Like, what do you think it is?
one of two things
Mm-hmm.
that the initial thing birth was a delirium fever filled dream that manifested this creature.
Sugary went
And
straight
then
psychological.
then the subsequent sightings, I think, could have been a number of things. Like once that image is implanted in people's minds, I do think it's psychological. I do think once you have the image, because if you think about it, when you read something, you you picture how they look. So if somebody explains something to you, you're picturing it.
You're
So
kind
if
of
you already have
visualizing
that,
it, and
and you already have that image, and you're on a dark, deserted highway, and you see a shadowy image, then I think you could make yourself believe that you've seen that. Does that make sense?
so specifically, you're saying that you think that somebody could
It's all
mistake
crockshit.
a large. Well, no, no. I'm saying like a large shadow. Like if somebody's driving down down the highway in New Jersey, okay, and they see a
Yes.
large shadow, maybe in the
Yes.
woods or overhead or in front of them, whatever have you,
Yes.
then they would either automatically assume it's the Jersey Devil.
Assume that's what it was because that's what they'd heard.
Now you talk about specifically like visualizing
This
it.
time. Well, if they're already scared or they see something shadowy and they're like, what is that? Oh, it must be, because what are the other options? So I'm not doubting that they seen something that maybe they didn't understand, but I'm saying I think your mind kind of fills in the blank with
Like your mind
whatever
plays
is the
tricks
most
on you a little bit.
available. Well, whatever's the most available. So if
Mm-hmm.
you think that's what you're going to see, you're in that place. This is what you heard was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's basically
For this
somebody's
specific,
brain
yeah. So
putting it two and two together.
I think that's how it transpires from person, because that's what everyone says. Well, how
Mm-hmm.
did X amount number of people see this?
Mm-hmm.
The same way anything else, word of mouth. If enough people tell you they've seen something, then you kind of start to wonder. Then if you're in a situation and maybe a little bit nervous or hesitant, or if you're walking and it's dark and then all of a sudden it gets quiet and you see a shadow, like I can see that taking place. Do you know what I mean? Like the perfect situation that your mind is already predisposed to be scared of something, and your mind's going to fill in that blank with it must be this because this is in this area.
Right. Okay. Kim, what's your thoughts on what Sugary said? And then also, you had mentioned in the beginning about the political aspect of it. What are you thinking on that as well?
Well, I gotta tell you, I agree with Sugary 100%. Um, I think that, um, a person tells you something, oh, I saw this creature and this is what it looked like. Um, if you're in that specific environment, your eyes can matrix and actually see that. And sometimes maybe your subconscious wants you to see it too. So I 100% agree with Sugary on that. Also, the political view that I had brought up was, um, the to make a long story short, because it just gets dragged out
Yeah, yeah.
forever. Um, they so the Leeds family, Daniel Leeds, was a member of the local assembly. He rose to survey general. Um, he ultimately got into it with the Quakers of the time. There was a huge feud between the Puritans and the Quakers during that time. They're going at it back and forth, back and forth. Um, I
Yeah.
feel like Daniel leads because he had, he was out to get the Quakers. I feel like he himself, or he paid, or, asked someone to help him out. I think he did a lot of the shenanigans himself. I think he was behind a lot of the shenanigans. People needed something or someone to blame on the shenanigans. But I think he was doing it, and then he was the one going around saying, "Oh, I saw this beast," or, could it have possibly been a creature, trying to work on people's nerves and their brain to make them think that it was this actual beast, but in reality it was him, because he was trying to get one up on the Quakers and mess with them a little bit. um that's what I think. And I think that he felt like, during this political time, that, he could be the one to swoop in and save the day and get rid of this beast ultimately, and then people would change their minds about him, and they would elect him to be, this big official, and yeah, they would swing his way, and suddenly he would be the hero. So yeah, so to make a long story short, I feel like he was behind all the shenanigans just to uh get into the government like he wanted to be.
So here's my thing on that. The tale of the tale is, of course, this child comes from Deborah Leeds, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the wife of Daniel. Now, why is it though that he would specifically, if he was the one to come up with the tale of this creature, if he was the one to come up and say the Jersey Devil is this 13th child, yada yada, why would he tie that specifically back to him?
Oh, to his
Mm.
wife?
Yeah, to his wife. Like, why would? Because wouldn't you put two and two together and you would say, well, hang on a second, you know, if this guy went and messed around his wife and then they created a devil, then this guy is really, really bad. Do you think it could have been in turn, like if he did create this creature? Because there's kind of a couple of, I would say there's like two options with the political view of it. You could have had it where initially, um, he made up this creature. He said, yes, this is like a Jersey Devil, this is a demon, yada, yada, yada. And then his rivals inside of politics, or the Quakers, whatever have you, could have said, oh, it came from him. Like, this is a child of his that's doing this, yada, yada, yada. Um, or the other side of it could just be that he was causing like a whole load of shenanigans around, like sabotaging everything, and then all of a sudden this kind of story came up, and then he built this creature around it, trying to throw suspicion off of him. Or there is even the third option, of which he could have created the creature and he was going to be the one to stamp out the evil, stamp out the devil in the town.
Yeah, and that's what I believe. I believe he thought, hey everybody, I can save us from this creature, this beast that I have seen around town. Like, let me save you from him, and be your hero. That's ultimately what I think. Um about the political side of it.
You
So,
think his wife was pregnant, so she was just uh put into it because she just happened to be pregnant?
Yes.
but
And
that's
he
my
thought,
biggest qualm with it though, because if you think about it, at the time, we're talking 1735. This is 1692 is the Salem witch trials. 1735, roughly 40, 50 years later, and they're talking about the devil and it's being associated with his wife. And if it is a power move, then how, where, basically it's like if you were to try to do this power move, why would it be associated with your wife? That's my biggest thing. That's what I'm trying to like get my head into and try to figure out.
Or what if, for whatever reason, like I said, maybe a delirium fever dream, his wife seen this and then he took advantage of that. Like he took advantage of the story that she said. Not that he planted it in her mind, but that she imagined this thing in a fever filled delirium dream, maybe while she was giving birth. Whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then he took advantage of that and was like, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm going to. I don't know.
That's my thing though too, is that okay, so this is around 1730 that this myth comes about and all of this is going on. Whether it's politically motivated or if it's just something like somebody was going around town, an animal was going around town, and they came up with this creature, this idea. Why is it that in 1909 then there is an entire week where this creature is supposedly seen every little bit way around, terrorizing everything? Is that all like coincidental, or what do you think? Why would it appear again, like nearly 200 years later, terrorizing the same area, and it's supposedly the Jersey Devil?
I would say, I think it's coincidence. I really do. I just think it's,
Why was it so long between sightings? I mean,
Well, there's several
right.
reports
Like
of
they
it and
couldn't
accounts
find
of it,
anything that said
but that was like the
why the
most.
200.
Well, that's the thing. That was the most like um, the most that they cited it, like the most heavily recorded sighting of the Jersey Devil was that entire week in January of 1909, where supposedly it was seen all over the place, terrorizing things. Like this was this creature. It attacked even a trolley car on the rail lines. Like it did everything. It was after the chickens. It was after the livestock. It was leaving footprints everywhere in 1909. I did read somewhere though that around this account, people were talking about, oh well, people were bored, they didn't have anything to do, so they probably went around like busting stuff up and just blaming it on the Jersey Devil. But that's my biggest thing, is it was seen
You know what that
sporadically,
reminds me of?
but
Have you ever heard about the the brownies in Ireland?
no.
The
yes.
mischievous.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes,
Doesn't it kind of remind you of that a little bit? The
it does.
brownies were um
Are they like little goblins or like little fairies or something, or
it, not a fairy. It was
okay?
of or like,
Uh-huh.
but not. It was separate. But they were troublemakers. They were mischievous. That was like that was the association. Brownies were mischievous. They stole things. They broke things. That's largely what they did. They were just troublemakers. And it reminds me of that in association. And it makes me think that, like a lot of things, humans need a reason for something. So instead of like, my kids are bad, then we'll blame it on the brownies. Not, that's very, very simplified. But do you know what I mean? Just
No,
it
yeah, yeah.
seems
It's
very
like an
simplified.
explanation for this instead of
Something
like
for
maybe
something.
yeah. So
Yes.
like the brownies would be like these kind of mischievous little supernatural creatures that went around, basically like vandalizing stuff, stealing stuff you would see
Breaking
maybe like
stuff. Yes.
yeah, like stuff
Yes.
you would see like maybe a group of teens do. You know, like they ain't got
Yes.
nothing to do. They're out for the summer. They're out of school. So, oh, let's go spray paint something. Let's go steal this person's, I don't know, something out of their house. Let's go break into this car or throw a baseball through a window. So it would be kind of like, I guess, more an explanation for that. So you think that the Jersey Devil is maybe something more of that? Like, okay, this big tale came from early 1700s, but then people use it again and again as a way to explain other happenings when it could just be simply like another creature or whatever have you.
Yeah. Well, because for the same reason that I believe those people, if they were described something, might have thought that they seen it. So if things were happening, then it's easy to pull on, even if it's older information and it happened 200 years ago, they must have still talked about it in some aspect. So they still knew about it. So I think it was convenient.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, do you remember that old tale of the Jersey Devil? Do you think that could be an explanation for XYZ?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kim, are you agreeing here or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I totally think that's what it is. I think they needed something to blame, and yeah, they dug up the Jersey Devil legend.
Well, all
And
right. Does anybody
also,
have
one
any?
thing I
Oh.
want to point out
Mhm.
too is, uh, you had mentioned that during that week in 1909, they spotted hoof prints. Well, I mean, if you think about it, in 1909, there was the only way that people got around was from horses. So is it possible that they were mistaking those for uh horses, and
Like large hoof prints or something like that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were exaggerating, the prints or whatever when they, just to get some excitement, just to say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, there's hoof prints around here." Obviously someone's been in here messing with the chickens, doing whatever. But that's boring. Let's blame it on the Jersey Devil.
Let's.
That sounds more
It's the
interesting.
Jersey Devil. Well, because if you think about it though, too, how does a lot of folklore get passed around? It's more so kind of like a parent telling their child about the boogeyman or something. Like it could be something that was also passed down via that way. Like, oh, if you're bad, the Jersey Devil's gonna come get you. And this is what the Jersey
Exactly.
Devil looks like. You know, it's some big scary creature. Because if you think about it, if you were to see a creature that was taller than you, had wings, had a tail, had leather skin, had hooves, had this like horse head with a dog's face or whatever have you. Like, if you were to see that, you'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like, what is that? What is this? You know, and there's all these these different accounts where somebody's like, "I saw it out my window," or "I saw this," or "I saw that." You know, and it could be fever dreams. It could be people saying, "Oh, it's this, that, or the other." But before we move on to the Mothman, did anybody have any final thoughts they wanted to talk about on the Jersey Devil or anything? Any final mentions?
No, I didn't.
No, Kim.
No, I was just, the Jersey Devil, quite honestly, that story, it just never sat right with me. And I don't know what it is about it, but it's like immediately the first time I had ever heard of the story, I called bullshit on it and I never went back to the story again. Like I just was completely like, no, I don't believe this. I'm not going to waste my time with this. This is ridiculous. And so I never really got into the Jersey Devil, to be quite honest. I don't buy the story. Um, I think it was just some exaggerated old wives' tales to pass the time away. To be quite honest, that's what my opinion is of the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are in agreement here. It just seems like such a kind of out of the way creature. Like it just sounds like something like, oh, maybe somebody saw some sort of creature, you know, that looked, maybe it had this, maybe it had that, and then it is what it is. Like, oh, you saw a really large horse and thought it was the Jersey Devil in the middle of the night. Oh, you saw, I don't know, a large bat or a large whatever have you. Let alone people just finding hoof prints supposedly and then saying, oh, well, it's that, this, or the other, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but moving on to the Mothman.
Yay!
Yeah, Kim was very excited about the Mothman, and Kim is super
Yes.
knowledgeable in the Mothman myth. So, Kim, do you want to take it away with giving us a little bit of backstory about who is the Mothman, what is the Mothman, kind of like a little bit of an origin story for that cryptid or that creature?
Sure, I'd love to. So, to make a long story short about the Mothman, um, in 1966, there was a group of teenagers. They were out at an old TNT factory. This was a local hangout for teenagers. It was no longer in use, but it's where they used to make ammunition during World War II, and it was abandoned. And so teenagers would just go and hang out. It was secluded. It was off the beaten path. Well, this particular night, four teenagers, two couples were out there. Um, I have heard that they were out there smoking weed. Um, but anyway, so they first saw the Mothman,
Mm-hmm.
and they immediately took off in their car towards a police station. You know, they're all shook up and rattled and frazzled. And the creature actually stayed with the car moving. They reached speeds of nearly 100 miles an hour. The creature was able to fly above the car the entire time. They said that he had a 6 to 8 foot wingspan. He was black and gray in color and had glowing red eyes. He was making a sound that sounded like a mouse squeaking or a record player being played at high speed. So it's kind of crazy if you think about it. This gigantic creature flying over your car, and he's like got this little high pitched mousy type voice. It's pretty hilarious.
It's like
It's like,
it's
it's
like
like a
having an
cartoon.
elephant with like a mouse squeak, like.
It, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny to think about it. So they get to the police station. The police separate them into separate rooms, and each of them gives about the same description and story. Um, and then after that happens, off and on throughout 1966, you hear, or yeah, there's different sightings from different people, mostly farmers, that they had spotted it out in their fields. um and something else that's interesting is they would see the Mothman, and then the Mothman would vanish, and then seconds later they would see mysterious lights or experience some mysterious frequencies in their televisions and radios that they could not explain. And it would always affect their dogs. Their dogs would start barking uncontrollably. The dogs would try to run and hide. They just started acting strangely. The people that spotted the Mothman would later go on to say that they had developed psychic abilities that they had never had before.
Psychic how? Like, are you talking about like they could predict the future or?
Yeah, they were getting premonitions.
Interesting.
And none of these people had ever had that before, but after seeing the Mothman, they had developed that ability. In
Mm-hmm.
1966, it was close to Christmas time, the Silver Bridge collapsed due to faulty wires in the bridge, because back then they didn't have bridge inspections. Um, the bridge collapsed. When it collapsed, it is said that people spotted the Mothman on top of the bridge. Um, Now, my theory is what they were seeing were the flashing red lights, the emergency lights that are on top of the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it possibly was. Um, a lot of people died, obviously, in that bridge collapse, and there's still remnants of that bridge today. And they left what's left of the bridge, and it's a very eerie feeling when you see it. There's this feeling comes over you that you can't explain. It's very sad, but yet
Mm-hmm.
there's this real eerie feeling.
Yeah.
um eh, yeah, it's pretty creepy. In fact, I had watched so many documentaries on Amazon Prime right now. There are tons of documentaries about the Mothman, and I highly recommend, if you want to get more educated about the legend, watch those documentaries. It's very good. Just steer clear of the movie, for Christ's sakes. The
The
movie is
Mothman
terrible.
prophecies.
Yes, the movie is
Do you
terrible.
know? Funnily enough,
Um,
I was gonna
I
mention the
love the
Mothman
book.
prophecies.
I
Yeah.
love the book.
Well, I don't know. Richard Gere just did not do it then for the Mothman prophecies.
no, no. Not at all, not in the least. The only
Mhm.
exciting part
Mhm.
of that movie is the end when the bridge collapses. That's
Mhm.
it. Like, the rest of the movie is just like a total snooze fest. I mean, I just could not get into it at all.
Sugary, what did
Um,
you like about the book?
Because it was, well, I like sci-fi, fantasy, supernatural. So,
It kind of
I
interested you in that way.
yeah, I like that. I never seen the movie.
Mhm.
I heard so much bad about it that I didn't want it to ruin what I enjoyed about the book.
Yeah, that's normally how
So
it is,
I
isn't
just
it?
thought of it as two separate things.
Yeah.
I've never seen the movie.
Yeah. It's like I think that's with most things, though. You know, it's always the book is better than the movie. There's rare
yeah.
occurrences where the movie's better than book, but so in telling of the Mothman, we were chatting back and forth a little bit before we started recording this episode, and you know, I had the question. I was like, well, has anybody? Because everybody keeps seeing this Mothman around this TNT mine. Everybody keeps seeing it around this TNT mine. Why has nobody gone in and investigated it? And I asked Kim this, and Kim, you had said that people have, but they've not seen anything.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
So that's the thing. Like, if you go in, you know this Mothman's hanging around this spot. People have obviously gone in. They've checked it out. They don't see anything. Why is it that this spot is the most well known though? Like, is it just because this is where the sightings are, or when did the sightings like start for this particular area? And in Point Pleasant, did they start at this TNT mine?
For Point Pleasant, yes. To my knowledge, from what I've gathered, in Point Pleasant, the first sighting of the Mothman was around the TNT area. Now, miners way before 1966 had documented in their journals of seeing the Mothman flying over the mines, and then the mines would suddenly collapse. And these were
Mm-hmm.
in different areas throughout West Virginia, not just one concentrated area for the
Mm-hmm.
miners. However, to my knowledge, the Mothman has never been spotted in West Virginia outside of Point Pleasant. Now, I did read a small article that people had documented seeing the Mothman right before the Chernobyl explosion. So, also in Egypt, they had spotted seeing a creature that from their description, it sounded exactly like the Mothman description as well. However, the Mothman hasn't been sighted in Point Pleasant since 1966 or 1967. He's not
That was
supposedly
kind of
after
like
the
his
bridge
heyday.
collapse. Yeah,
Okay.
supposedly after the bridge collapse, the Mothman sightings just stopped.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I would like to bring up too the fact that I kind of mentioned it in the
Mm-hmm.
intro about farmers would see mysterious lights and
Mhm.
UFOs.
Yeah.
It leads some people to believe that the Mothman is an alien because supposedly the men in black would show up in Point Pleasant. They went door to door to people that had claimed seeing the Mothman. They did investigations with those people, and then those people never spoke of their occurrence with the Mothman ever again, supposedly, after being visited by the Men in Black.
They got that flashlight for get ready.
Yeah,
They show
yeah,
up at the door, knock at the door. What do you know? Okay, flashlight.
mhm, yeah.
I mean, in thinking about the Mothman, because me and you were talking about this, Kim and Sugary, later on, before we started recording. We were talking about, well, what is the Mothman? Like, what does the Mothman signify? And I know, Kim, you were talking about, what if this is what if this is, kind of a creature that warns people before something happens? Like, the creature shows up and is like, hey, this is bad juju in this area, something bad's about to happen. And Sugary, I didn't get your opinion on what you think of the Mothman. Like, what in thinking, not whether or not the Mothman is real or not, but in thinking of how this Mothman appears normally around when something's going to go down. What do you think on that?
That he's prophesizing. Is that what you mean? Like,
Yeah, like, would
what
you
he's about?
say, like, do you think he's more so like prophesizing something,
I
or do you
mean,
think he could be the cause of
oh,
said things?
it felt to me like more of a prophesizing, even if it's late to the fact or right before it happens. But it's like I I, I don't feel like he was the cause of it. I feel like he was an association. Like we see him and then this happened, but that doesn't mean he's the cause. It just means
He was there and then it went down.
yeah, which still sounds bad, but not that
Yeah.
it's more it feels more like a prophecy to me than like a cause.
Right. And I mean, in thinking about it with the Mothman, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Like, do you think the Mothman could be an actual creature? Do you think it could be like an entity, like maybe a specter of some kind, and that's why we can't find evidence of it? I mean, what's your guys' opinion on what this creature actually is? Do you think it's just this crane? I can't remember, Kim, what type of crane they were saying. It's basically like a big bird, like a mutated bird that some
A
people have
sandhill
said.
crane.
Okay, a
Yeah, a
sandhill
sandhill
crane.
crane.
So, like, is it that? Is it an alien? Is it an angel? Is it what do you guys think it could be? Um, Instead of being a physiological, like a physical creature, or do you think it could be one? Like, what's your opinion?
I'll let you answer that first, Sugary.
I think it's the ghost of an alien.
The ghost of an alien?
Don't laugh at me.
I'm not loud. I'm just saying, the ghost of an alien. That is a first.
That's interesting. No, that's an
You don't
interesting
think
theory.
aliens have ghosts?
I don't know if aliens have ghosts. I don't know what's going on with aliens and alien ghosts. A prophesizing alien ghost?
Well, okay,
Okay.
because it feels more like something. It doesn't feel like the Jersey Devil. Like okay, whatever.
Okay.
Smoke another one. That's what I
Yeah.
want to say when somebody's talking about the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like that. Like I think that there's some basis there. And I think saying an alien ghost is the widest, broadest exaggeration that I can give to encompass every like it's something. It's something. No, I don't know what. I have no idea. Like I threw that out there because I do think that it was something.
Kim, what's your opinion on it? What do you think? What type of creature could the Mothman be?
Well, at first, when I first heard, of the story, my immediate reaction was, he's the bad guy. He's causing all this. But then as I started watching more documentaries and started reading more research about him and everything, that's when I started to realize that he's there to protect people. um, so I'm going to say I honestly believe that he is some sort of an angel, like a guardian angel. Like he's trying to protect people. I don't think he's in the actual shape of a moth. Um
Yeah, that's
I
one thing that always gets me. I'm like, why is it a Mothman? Like, it sounds like a corny superhero or supervillain. You know, the creature from the
Right,
Black
yeah.
Lagoon or
But
Swamp
don't you
Thing
get
or.
that feeling? Okay, what I meant by, I don't know if it's the same thing you meant. I'm sorry for interrupting. Prophecy is okay, so this bridge collapsed. That we know happened, but how do we know that had the Mothman not been there, something worse wouldn't have happened? That's what I feel. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes. Yes. Um, I ultimately think that what those kids could have saw, um, it could have been dark clouds that were overhead, and it was the car that was actually making the squealing sound. Um, and once again, overactive imaginations kicked in, especially when you're high. And you're gonna see something that's not really there, that you can't explain. um as for other people seeing it, to my knowledge, no one has ever gotten close enough to actually see it, um like up close and personal. It's always been from a distance that people have seen it. So could it be just, mist in the air, like, black dark clouds moving in, it's always seen at nighttime. No one's ever seen it during the day. Why is that? There's a lot of things that people still cannot explain for it. I feel like there's an entity. There was a guardian angel. It was an entity. Um, and I feel like that entity was present, but it was a like it wasn't trying to be seen, but the people had a feeling. They could feel the entity, they could feel the warning, but they needed something to put with that feeling. And because of eye matrixing and mind matrixing, they saw this creature and they just put two and two together, and that feeling that they had, they associated it with this creature that their mind had created. Um, that's ultimately what I feel. When you visit Point Pleasant, um, and you are in the museum and you're surrounded by all the reports, all the newspaper clippings, all the books, so on and so on, you suddenly get a feeling that comes over you. And if anyone listening that's ever been to the Mothman Museum can agree with me, there's just this certain feeling you get when you're in the museum versus what you get once you leave the museum. You feel like so, I don't want to say spiritual, but you suddenly are in this whimsical world, um and you feel like he's still there, if that makes sense. Like
So you
there's a
get a
feeling
gist
like,
of the presence. Like, you can feel like there's like a sixth sense, like there's something going on here.
right, yes, yes, you definitely get you pick up on something. There's definitely vibes there. I felt it throughout the entire area of Point Pleasant, to be quite honest. Not just the museum itself, but everywhere we went inside of Point Pleasant, you just felt differently. You felt this peace come over you. Um, and I don't know if it's because of my, going into Point Pleasant, my thinking of he was there to protect people. I don't know if that's got something to do with it, but that's ultimately the feeling that you get. You're just at peace suddenly. Um, but the Mothman is such a whimsical creature, I feel. Like he's so
Mm-hmm.
animated, like or well, at least people have made his image out to be very animated and very, like with the big red eyes and, so much more descriptive and believable. Like I could believe that
Mm-hmm.
maybe a creature like that exists versus the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
That creature,
Or
no.
at least existed at one time. And I have no
Right,
explanation for why they were drawn to Point Pleasant, or why, what it was about Point Pleasant, or what they were protecting there, cuz that's what it feels like they felt like they were given the job to protect that area for whatever reason, or to
right.
try to.
Right, yeah, because once you leave the Point Pleasant area, you no longer have the same feeling. I just find it very interesting. And I've heard some people say that about Chernobyl too, that once you are in Chernobyl, like, it's people can go there for research. In fact, at one point, you were allowed to go in and take tours of Chernobyl. Um, but,
Really?
you had to get within a certain feet of the reactors or whatever, but people were claiming the same thing, like they just had this certain feeling. um and I didn't learn about any of that until I started doing, further research into the Mothman, and learned about how, people had possibly seen them or seen him fly over Chernobyl, and then the feeling that you get when people would visit it. And I thought, oh my God, I have felt that same feeling. I know what they're saying because I felt it in Point Pleasant. So I thought that was very interesting.
You know, Kimmy said that the Mothman, you think it could be an angel or some sort of entity that's um, like a kind of a prophesizing, like it's there, it's a good feeling, kind of surrounded, like you
Right.
feel protected. And then
Yes.
Sugary, you said it could be like an alien ghost.
Yeah, something
It's like
that,
something that's unexplainable,
and not
basically.
even that it's still there, but I
Mm-hmm.
think even if it was at one time, that there
Mm-hmm.
was something.
That there was
So,
something there, whatever
yes,
it was.
something
Yes.
real,
Yeah,
something tangible. Well, I
yeah,
guess no tangible, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know, in my personal opinion, it's really hard for me to chalk up what this, if it is a physical creature. You know, I don't know that it could be a physical creature because of the fact that there's no evidence. But people in that area now, of course, some people will say, "Oh, it's all controversial because this is just for people to get tourists to come there. What are people going to go to West Virginia for? We got to make up something. You know, we got to make up a creature." Some people may say that, but in my opinion, if miners have it written down in their journal that there's a figure there, if these people see it supposedly in the 60s, if throughout wherever have you, Chernobyl incidents, all this other kind of stuff, people see this similar figure, it makes me kind of think that it may not be something that is physical. It may not be a physical creature. It might be a some sort of like an entity or some sort of like more so paranormal rather than supernatural um, type of figure or creature, something that can't be really explained physically. Because I feel like now this gets into a little bit of my belief on the metaphysical side of the house, but I think that everything has a kind of an energy or a pulse or a vibe about it, right? So if you
Mhm.
go, and I think most people would agree that if you go somewhere, you can kind of get a vibe for something. You can kind of say, "Hang on a sec, something." My gut instinct is telling me something's weird here. I'm feel the back of my the hair on the back of my neck is standing up, type thing.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like even if I was a miner, if I put myself in the shoes back in the 1800s, late 1800s, if I was a miner and I got this weird feeling, and I were to see a figure or some sort of, creature, entity, whatever have you, there, you would put two and two together and you would be like, okay, hang on, that thing is back. Whatever it is, that thing is back,
Mhm.
type
Yeah.
thing. And I think, it goes into the category of the unexplainable phenomena type thing. Could it be scientifically explained? Sure, it could be clouds and a lights and psychosis, or not psychosis in the case of the people who had partaken in weed, but it could be in whatever have you on the scientific realm, and it could be explained that way. But on the metaphysical side of the house, this paranormal, the supernatural, I feel like it could be some sort of an entity or something along that lines, where it's like, hey, I'm here, something's about to go down, and people started to recognize that in occurrence with whatever the feeling is that they got. Like, that thing is here. We know something's gonna happen. Um, and some people at home, they might be thinking, well, why in the hell did these ladies come up with doing the Mothman and the Jersey Devil together? Well, so initially, in knowing about, just offhand knowledge about the Jersey Devil, I was like, the Jersey Devil and the Mothman kind of seem similar, and there's been accounts of the Mothman and the Jersey Devil back to back between New Jersey and West Virginia. Some people say, oh, maybe there's a couple trickling sightings here and a couple trickling sightings there. And in my head, I was thinking, what if this is the same creature? What if this is the same entity, and people just see it here and again, now and then, type thing? And then really get into the discussion type thing. You can kind of separate them out, because you have the Jersey Devil, who is, as Sugary had mentioned, the brownies of, was it Ireland or Scotland? Ireland. So you have the Jersey Devil kind of is a similarity to that, except instead of multiple entities, it's just one that goes around breaking stuff, eating the livestock, killing the chickens, creating all of this kind of stuff. It's more so known for kind of destructive tendencies. Whereas you have something like the Mothman, who's just kind of there whenever something's about to go down. Now, I have no explanation, though, as to, and I'm going to digress here a little bit, but I have no explanation as to why the Mothman hasn't been seen in and around that area since what, around the 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, what would cause that to,
Well,
to
if it's
occur
anything,
or happen?
the simplest explanation for me is that whatever job he had to do was done.
Yeah.
I know that seems trite, but I think whatever he felt he had to do, because I don't superimpose these godlike thinking or powers on entities. So it's not like know all, see all, just whatever they thought they could prevent or do in that time frame, they did. So they were no longer needed there or felt they had to be there.
It was like, I'm here for right now. This is what I can do for right
Whatever
now, or
they
my
had,
purpose, and then
yes, that's
interesting.
what I think.
Yeah. Um, I think that's a good reasoning. Kim, are you kind of on the same page here as Sugar is thinking with
Yes.
it was just, this is the time frame to do my job, and that's why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, I think he was there leading up to the bridge collapse, and I think that that is possibly why he was there. That was, in my opinion, I think that was the ultimate reason he was there.
Like, that's why
Um,
people kept seeing him, but it was in turn, you know, because a lot of people lost their lives during this bridge collapse. This is a
yes,
massive thing. So he could have
Yes.
just been in the area, like trying to go and warn people in whatever way he could before the bridge collapsed.
Yeah. And like I said, we don't know that it couldn't have been more than what it was had he not been there,
Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
yeah,
or more destructive or more damaging or whatever. But I
Do you know, I was thinking, what would, and sorry for cutting you off here, Sugar, but
You're good.
I was thinking, what about the people that saw the Mothman leading up to the bridge collapse? The individual stories and these accounts, these reports, the individual people that saw this, were they on the bridge that day?
More
Were they
importantly,
around
were
the
they
bridge that
not
day?
because they seen him?
Yeah. Like, did they cross this
Right?
bridge often? Did
Right?
they, was it that he appeared to specific people that were going to be on this bridge? Some people may have seen him and thought nothing of it and went on and did their thing, or, somehow ignored him or whatever have you. But then what if those people with these accounts and these stories either didn't go on the bridge because of him, or went on the bridge themselves?
It's interesting that you bring that up because, to my knowledge, all of the people that spotted him previous to the bridge collapse were not on the bridge the day it collapsed.
See, isn't that interesting?
Right?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wonder, leading up, or, well, following after the bridge collapse, like what went on after the fact, because we talk about this kind of prophesizing thing, and these entities, and it's not just the Mothman that I feel like the Mothman is a very centralized area for an entity that could possibly, or multiple entities that could possibly have been found all throughout the world, through land and time. Like this, the Mothman could have been in Chernobyl, but it's not. Well, the Mothman, a giant moth-like thing out of DC Comics or something.
No, it's the
But
name
it's the
that they gave
same.
to him in that location.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then, but this is the
Yes.
same creature, the same entity,
The
or maybe
same
something
as
similar to
Beelzebub,
there.
Satan, Lucifer is all the same person. But
Yeah, yeah.
yes, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting. I think that's a pretty interesting thought. Well, before we go and wrap it up, we're at the tail end here of discussing the Mothman. We did I would say, a pretty short discussion on the Jersey Devil, but the Jersey Devil, it's just so like, but a leather skin hoof thing, and it's flying around, you know, you know. Um, and did you guys have any last minute thoughts or opinions or things that you wanted to add where you were like, hang on, wait, I forgot to say this, or I would
I
like to
think
leave off on this.
the only thing for me is anyone that thinks like that they're the same.
Mhm.
Yeah, that no, I don't see that. Like the
Mhm.
only thing the same about them is that they're two unknown things. Like there's no similarity for me. That's it.
I think the only similarities I would see between the Mothman and the Jersey Devil would be that it can fly, it has wings, and then it has supposedly red eyes. That would be like
Right.
and it's big, and it's big, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but Kim, did
But
you
they're
have
just
any?
unknown
Oh, sorry.
things. I don't think there's any other um, characteristics that are similar.
That are, yeah,
I
even
think
in
they
the
just clump them
presentation.
together because they are unknown. I think.
Right. Yeah. The only other thing that I wanted to add was, on the Mothman. Um, and it triggered the thought in my mind when you said, "I want to know what happened after the bridge collapsed." After the bridge collapsed, it was passed in the legislature, and that all suspension bridges had to be inspected. And that is something that still goes on to this day. It is the law. And it created jobs for West Virginia. Um, it, only good things came from, aside from the death and the tragedy, but good things came from that experience as far as creating jobs. They built a new bridge. It's called the Silver Memorial Bridge, and it's just feet away from the remnants of the old bridge. They built it. It was finished in 1967, and it's never collapsed. It's never had an issue because of the legislature passing the laws of bridge inspections every year, and how strict those inspections are. So ultimately, that bridge collapse, had it never happened, who knows how many more of those suspension bridges would have collapsed because there was no inspections on them.
Yeah, that's a crazy.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's really interesting to know and to think that this figure was involved around the same exact, like, yes, this was seen, and then from this instance, came this. I think that's a pretty crazy thing, and it kind of, I feel like it kind of opens up people's minds a little bit. Like, hang on a second, like, this equals that, and then plus that, divide by this. It starts getting the gears wiring in people's brains, I feel like. Well, all right. I think that just about sums up this episode of the Dreadful Night podcast. Now, Kim, of course, is known as Miss Ladedah. Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to go and shout out or mention? Because I'm going to put Kim's links down below for a couple of her different socials and for her YouTube channel. What all? Where can they find you? What all can you talk about to them for and that kind of stuff?
Well, you can find my YouTube channel. It is Miss Ladedah, and it is ms.ladedah, Ladedah. And my channel covers everything from cooking to the paranormal to product reviews, mostly paranormal. Also, you can find me on Instagram, and this is all one word, The Real Miss Ladedah.
Sugary, anything for you? I know every week you're like, nope, nada.
Then why do you still ask?
Because I do. This is every week, you guys. I mentioned this on the last episode. This is Sugary every week. I'm like, Sugary, do you have anything to say to the folks at home? Nope.